Welcome to the Merit Makers Podcast. My name is Chris Scamra. I'll be your host. Today in studio with us, we have Cameron Hanson joining today. Cameron is a Ohio-based cinematographer. For those of you who are listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please feel free to come check out the YouTube channel on Merit Makers Podcast. There in the YouTube video description, you can find an application form. If there are any freelancers, video production, or film production people out there who want to come on the show, you can fill out that form and let us know you exist. If you send me some basic information, I'll be more than happy to reach out and hopefully get you on a future episode. So with that being said, Cameron, thanks for taking the time to join us. I appreciate you coming in today.
Of course. It's good to be here, man.
Absolutely. Glad to have you. So just to let you know about how the show goes usually, we ask for socials up front, and then I sort of get into the industry side of things. This is also just to let people know as well how this show works, because we're still kind of early on.
Sure.
We haven't, passed like 15 episodes yet. So in terms of how we're going to go through things today, we're going to go into industry topics and then hopefully get into some really good conversation and get your story at the end. So to start things off, where can people find you? Instagram, Facebook?
Yeah,
LinkedIn?
Instagram is cameron.in.hanson. The extra in is a little confusing for people sometimes, as well as, I guess, my portfolio website, which is cameroninhanson.com, which is all one. Some people forget the extra in there because it's kind of hidden. So we're, I'm trying to get the brand right, but there is another cameronhanson.com that somebody got. So they snatched it from underneath me, I guess. So yeah, don't forget the extra in afterwards. That's my middle initial. So
that's an issue I'd love to talk about later today as well, is getting into the whole, what are people going to do when you try to make a media company or a brand and someone already has the name? That's already becoming a problem for me in my stuff that I'm trying to do. So it's not that anyone has too many Scammer brands.
I was going to say, with your last name, I find that hard to believe. But
yeah.
I didn't think there was as many Cameron Hansons as there were, but then I'm Googling and I'm the eighth one that comes up. I was like, what are these other people doing out here? I don't understand, but
even with me, you would be surprised. There's at least 3 of us out there that are on the internet. I actually talked to this person. There's another me out there, another Chris Scamra, who works at the Capitol building in security. He was a part of a K9.
Really?
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised even if he listens to this show.
That's funny.
And then there's a doctor me out there somewhere who's got a PhD in some sort of health field, and he's really established. Okay, cool.
That's a hard
funny
flex.
thing is too, is he's got an IMDb page. The doctor guy, because he played in some type, he didn't play, he represented himself in a documentary or something, and they gave him IMDb credit. So I was like, huh?
So you can't even get that one for yourself.
I know.
Is he one?
I don't know. I'm pretty sure I'm Chris Scamra on IMDb.
Is he Christopher?
He's Christopher.
Okay.
So technically my full legal name is Christopher, but I go by Chris all over the place.
Right.
So it's not a problem. Anyway, let's talk about
We're already going off on tangents.
I know, but we've had a year to cultivate friendship to be able to do it, so very grateful for that. Let's get into your industry side of things. So your primary focus right now is DP, cinematographer, camera operation. Would you mind telling me a little bit about what it is you focus on specifically in your work, and what are you trying to pursue right now? This is mainly for producers, directors, or even fellow freelancers out there who may want to reach out to you over Instagram or through your website even to contact and hopefully collaborate in the future. What is it that you are currently trying to do in the industry?
Yeah, so I guess as far as what I'm trying to do, just trying to, make great motion pictures, man. I just it's kind of silly to say it like that, but it can always depend on the project. If sometimes, you get a project and you're I want to go as close to realism as I can and not use almost all natural lighting. And sometimes you go the opposite route where you're I want a lot of color and I want clearly non-realistic colors involved. But I do like a nice, sharp, crisp image for the most part. I do a lot of shots with movement involved at the moment. That's kind of what I find most interesting is camera movement. So I do a lot of that as well, typically. Unless it's not called for, then I don't really do it. But, I'm just my job is to supplement what's written on the script and to make it come to life and to use my imagination and my creativity to make that happen as best as I can, at least. Just making the director and the writer and all the producers' vision into reality. So
very much on the execution side of things then.
Yeah.
So in terms of workflow, this is another question I like to ask people, or generally I try to enter into this realm. What is it like to work with Cameron on set? What are your things that you value when you are on scene, on the ground, working? Are you more of a very meticulous, we have to have everything planned out, or are you more so plans are a bit restrictive for me and I like to go with the flow? There's some lines that are already drawn in the sand, so to speak, when it comes to the industry, where it's like usually it's a very good idea to have a shot list and a storyboard, and going in you kind of have to have an idea of what you're shooting. But I know there are some people out there that they stick to the script, not to use a bad pun, to make sure that you are shooting only the shots that you planned. Or there are other people that get there and they make their best stuff in the moment, off the cuff, because it wasn't planned and they just found a really cool angle that no one could have planned for, and you end up using that and it's the best take of the film.
Sure.
You get what I'm saying? It's like, what are things that how is it that you operate to give people out there an idea of what it's like to work with Cameron?
Yeah, I think it's 50-50. Not to use like a cop-out answer or anything, but I think it like I said earlier, it depends on the project. Like I've done some projects where there's zero pre-production planning on my part, and that was just because that's just the way it worked out. It just wasn't needed, and I had no access to go to the set that we were going to use. I showed up on the set the first day, seeing what it looked like, just like everybody else, and so it's kind of hard to plan when you haven't been to the set yet at all. And then I've been on some, like the one we're doing right now called AnyTask, where I got to go to the space and I got to use a program that I like called Cinematographer to kind of plan out what I thought would be best, and have lighting situations and make some previs, which is what I like, because sometimes I have stuff in my head, and being able to even crudely show people what I have in mind, even if it's not perfect and it's not 100% accurate as to what we're going to end up doing, I like to have it there, because then that can also inspire the people I work around. So, but as far as like storyboarding, I do like to use Cinetracer to storyboard nowadays. I've been getting on that train a little bit, at least to like give the director and producers an idea about what I'm thinking as far as angles and lighting and sort of the mood. But I feel like it's super important to improv on set as well, as far as like some things you just can't account for, like the way an actor moves, or the way the light is hitting just right off of this certain paint that you couldn't account for. Like we had no idea that the white walls in the building we were in the other day were going to reflect the way they did and make certain skin tones look the certain way. So it's kind of happy. It's like filmmaker happy accidents sort of things. Like it just worked out for the best. So yeah, I like a good amount of improv, like sticking to the storyboards, getting the stuff you need, and then if you have time, maybe trying it a different way. Or if you find something you're like, wow, this is so much better, then just do it. As long as you have the stuff that you need, I don't see the problem in getting an extra shot or trying something new at the time, because there's always untold and unknown variables that happen on the day of the shoot. So yeah.
Absolutely. I think that from a producing and camera standpoint as well, in terms of my background, you can never 100% plan for a shoot. What I mean by that is there are always going to be things that pop up, or things that are unexpected that happen. They may be small and minute, or they could be gigantic and disastrous. Mm-hmm. You need to be as prepared as possible, in my opinion, and from my experience going into the shoot, so that you can have the least stressful time possible, and everybody can be able to creatively fulfill their ambitions and dreams and passion, and also deliver a really good product.
Yeah.
Going into things as well with moving into sort of workflow a little bit more. Question I have then, when it comes to working with directors, this is something I like to ask our DPs, is what is more valuable to you, or which do you as a cinematographer need more when it comes to working with a counterpart of a director, someone in the director's shoes who knows what they want, or someone who is very free-reigning and only worries about the story and the actors, whereas you handle how it looks, if that makes sense. One is focused on performance, where they let you worry about the image, or someone who has a reign over everything, not in a bad way, but they've got it under control, and that way you can just focus on executing their vision. Do you like to worry about adding your own spin on it, or do you need that structure, is what I'm trying to get to?
I preferably, I like if they tell me up front about what their goal is for a shot or a scene, so that way I can go from there and start working. So like I would ask, like, do you want this to be moody? Do you want, like, what is the time of day? Like, what is the feel that you're trying to, like, what is the scene trying to portray? I guess at the end of the day, is it supposed to be sad? Is it supposed to be happy? Because then from there you can go and decide whether it should be a bright scene or whether it should be super moody or warm or cold. I think that you have to start there first. But if I had to say which one I prefer, it would be the director that's focusing more on the acting and the actors and the story and building that, giving me tips, of course, because it's at the end of the day, they're in charge, so they should tell me what their vision is, or if it's a writer, what they had in mind when they wrote it, because it's all a collaborative team effort. So I wouldn't say I would ever want somebody just to be like, yeah, just do whatever you want, because then what if I do something and they end up not liking it? Then it's just my fault all around. Whereas, like, it's always good to get multiple takes on things too, and at least at the very end of the day, more parties involved can be like, I had a hand in that, or that was our collaborative effort together. Yeah, I guess just I lost my train of thought.
No, it's okay.
I just want people involved, and I think that the more you're involved with certain things, if you can handle it, like if a director's putting a lot of time and effort into like hand holding me through like what exactly they want, then that's their prerogative. Like, they should be able to do that if they want. But I would rather them trust me and free up their time to go do other things, because they're always busy. They're always doing something, along with like you as a producer, like at least on the set we've been on, like you're always doing something. So I would rather you not have to, I would rather prove myself and not have to have you worry about me, or me to be able to take a load off of you or whatever director I'm working with, to, just have faith in the process, know that they gave their 2 cents on what they want, and I can just go run with it.
That's something that I, as a producer, or anyone as a director, I think would really appreciate. And that's part of the reason why we bring on other team members, is so that we can delegate. It's all about making sure that not only do we have people to hand off responsibility to, but that those people can be confident and competent enough to handle it. From my experience with you, you are definitely competent enough to handle those things. So I appreciate bringing that on. I don't mean to butter you up or make it seem like, over compliment or anything. But I do enjoy working with you, and that's the part of the reason why I asked that question, is because time on set is money to a lot of people. And sometimes if the director has to spend a lot of time over the shoulder of the DP because they really, 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 really want this scene to look a certain way, or they would just want to direct and make sure that the camera's exactly right. I mean, that's the director's choice of how much responsibility they want to delegate, and also in terms of money, I suppose, how much are they willing to spend on making the image in their mind's eye, I suppose. And that's also the contrast there too for the DP, for the director of photography. Sometimes you're hopping from job to job and you don't have enough time to go through pre-viz or pre-pro with the director. You don't have on larger projects 5-6 months to go through storyboarding and get the pre-planning just right. It all depends on project scale.
Yeah.
If you are going to be shooting a multi-$1,000 feature film, you probably want to make sure that you know what you're doing when you're going onto set. But if you're coming on as a director of photography sometimes, and you don't have that that pre-planning, or you don't have anything in your head up front, you need the director to tell you what to do, because you don't know what they want. And so that's part of the reason why I asked you that question, is because everyone's different. And by answering that, you've let everyone know kind of how you work and what it's like a little bit to be working with you.
Yeah.
And I want to get to AnyTask in a little bit, so we'll definitely bring that up. That's for those of you who are listening that may not know what that project is. I'm sure it'll be out by the time this episode is available. Probably we'll link it in the description of the YouTube video. For those of you who want to go check that out, go find the YouTube channel. Shameless plug. And you can watch the end product of the short film there. That is a project that we put together with Gibson Davis, as well as Cameron here and a bunch of other really, really cool people.
Something I was going to say about Gibson, I think the first thing, back to your point about, getting the director's opinion, I think the first thing I asked him when we talked about the project in general was, you tell me exactly the scenes that you want and things that you want to be in there, and then I'll go from there, because I want to make sure we get in what exactly you have pictured, and then I'll fill in the cracks and I'll do the rest. I just think that's important to point out, because for this very specific project, he wanted certain things, like the fight scene to be a certain way. And I was like, all right, you handle the fight scene. If you want me to do the other stuff and sort of plan for that, then that'll be your chunk and this will be my chunk.
Agreed. And that's, I think this was, I could be wrong, and I want to find out more about what you shot in the past. I've been on one other project with you, and then we've met and chatted in a bunch of different places in the past. Mm-hmm. But I think AnyTask is definitely a project that had a lot of firsts for everybody. I don't know, was that your first take on an action scene?
That was my first action scene that I shot this way. So I've done another action scene on a film called Sins for Hire, but it was like our take at kind of like the Daredevil hallway scene in the show, of just like one long continuous take of the main character fighting through a hallway. So we tried to do that, but the space we had was very, very limited. And in order to get it all in one take, we thought it would be best to use a gimbal. So I used my gimbal. So it was not like, for AnyTask, we're doing handheld, which is very different, because I primarily, from almost everything I do, I usually shoot with a gimbal. And now with AnyTask, that's starting to change a little bit, to the point where I'm not afraid not to use the gimbal anymore.
Nice.
I think I'll always like a good like Ronin. I just got the RS2, so I've been itching to actually use that on a production, but I'm finding that like it's needed when it's needed, and if you don't actually need it, a little handheld shake isn't gonna kill anybody for the most part. So yeah, it's definitely opened my eyes to a different way of shooting, I guess. And it's been a lot of fun doing action scenes this way, because Gibson knows what he's talking about with action scenes. He loves them, and I know in other films he's done them too. So learning from him, like his techniques that he uses when he would shoot them, and then getting to actually do them and be physical and like in the faces of the actors and like doing the stunts with them has been a fun experience.
I'd love to get into a little bit of how we incorporated action and stunts into the camera work. Not that we had you, jumping off of buildings or anything.
Not yet.
Not yet. Maybe later down the road. But with that being said as well, I want to make sure that we are using this as sort of a prologue or a prelude. I don't know what the word is. A peek behind the curtain into AnyTask, because I'm going to have Gibson on later on, and we'll take a deep dive into that project. So I'm trying to stay in our lane of camera work here for that show, right. just FYI for you.
So we don't talk too much about the behind the scenes
exactly.
directing parts of it. So we got to give him something to talk about too.
Exactly. Right. So not to say, hey, let's go over here and talk about something else now, but it's more like I do want to make sure I can cover all the camera-oriented stuff with you, because on the producing side, I have produced a lot of different projects before in the past. However, I have not done something to this, I suppose, scale, where I have been the sole, and this is not to come off as, I'm not trying to brag or
it's a sick brag,
blow up my head or anything. When it comes to flexing, I try to keep things humble.
Sure.
But I have to also communicate the specifics of the project. So I'm going to try and go and do that now.
Right.
This is the first project that I have produced where I have been the main supplier of funds thus far. We still have 2 days to go in production as of recording this. Supplier of funds, so I have executive producer credit here. I did a lot of the organization, call sheets, phone calls. I brought on all the crew.
Yeah.
I basically gave Gibson a call one day and asked him if he had any scripts up, and this is about as deep into background as I'll go on this. But he said, yeah, I've got this short film script I'm trying to do. It's about 8-10 pages. I'm like, great, let's shoot it. He's like, wait, what? I'm like, yeah, let's go. And so we started out doing it from there. So I'm going to save the backstory other than that for the future. But on the producing side, in terms of when we're talking about firsts, this has been one of my first whacks at being entirely responsible for a project in regards to logistics, planning, crew, funding, purchasing, rentals, and all of that. I've done all these different things separately, but never really under one roof. And so I'm really proud of what we did day one, and I'm really looking forward to what days 2 and 3 will bring on. For you, in regards to working with actors that have stunt experience, I know that Gibson was very, very happy to have the cast that we do, because they have some combat or fighting background. I'm not entirely sure all of what that entailed, because that's kind of his world.
Right.
Whereas I'm handling logistics, crew, equipment, all of that. He's handling story and talent, which we'll talk about on a later episode. Feel free to check that out and tune in, everybody. But from the camera side, was there anything in particular that you had to prep for yourself, or what were maybe some interesting aspects of working with our two main talent, Stetson and Scotty, on set this past shoot day? What were some of the interesting parts of working with the action side of things for you?
Well, I had to build out my handheld rig. I own my Blackmagic Pocket 4K, and we rent Rokinon lenses, Cine lenses for that. And I was kind of concerned because I've never used it for this sort of thing before. And I was like, well, I hope it holds up, because like I said, never used it for this. So I just kind of built it out, and I tested it in my room. I have a neck strap for it and stuff. I primarily use the gimbal, but like 6 months ago, I was like, I need to rig it out for like a tripod, or if I wanted to go handheld with it. So I did. And the RS2 comes, if you buy the Pro Combo, I think, it comes with a wireless transmitter, like for your phones specifically. And then I also own a Nucleus Nano. So we had the Nucleus Nano on there. And so I was like, for this fight scene, I can't just have somebody, because primarily, usually, I have somebody over my shoulder with a separate monitor, kind of like right here, and they're pulling focus for me with a separate monitor attached to me. Well, for this, that would be so limiting to like how much I could like whip the camera and do the rolls and stuff with the actors when they're doing it. So I was like, this is the perfect time to test out this wireless transmitter, and you have the iPad.
Right.
So I was like, instead of just using somebody's phone, we can use the iPad as a director's monitor and a focus puller's monitor. So there's a couple people that pulled focus throughout the day, but for the actual fight scene, you were pulling focus for me, and probably not an easy task at all. But
good fun.
It probably would have been a red task if I had to say. Little movie quote for you there once you see it. But yeah, I don't know. The wireless transmitter worked really well, I think, and it has a shorter battery life than I would have liked. But for the most part, I was really happy with like how well it was working, how much freedom it gave me just to walk around and do my thing and not have to worry about like a cable and like pulling the person along with me. Because I've definitely been on sets where I've had a focus puller and I'm limited to like having a leash.
Yeah.
So I'm like, come on, let's go. get your 40-foot cable. We got to go over here now. And then just walking over there. But man, that wireless transmitter really changed the game, especially for this fight scene. So I really like that. Definitely worth the money on that one. So if you wireless transmitters, they're great.
I totally know how you feel from a camera perspective, because I also do director of photography, camera operation on top of the producing and photography stuff that I do, as well as AC. So it's like my world is logistics, crew, management, like what's the word? Leadership, I suppose.
Right.
And also camera department currently on top of photography. And you're right, I was ACing for you, but with the focus pulling and stuff, I was very, very surprised, like genuinely surprised how well the wireless
The little
held
latency
up.
of it.
Yeah, held up with an iPad, because I've been on set with like Teradek type stuff before, and so I'm used to using that level of kit in terms of transmission quality, and you can rely on that stuff really, really heavily. But with something that I haven't looked into the transmitter specifically that you used, but from what I remember, it wasn't necessarily a high-end or top-end model whatsoever. And I was expecting it to, have interference issues and cause some, like, a lot of different lagging problems where I would have my focusing messed up quite a bit because I was just using the Nano. But, like, we only had, from my 2 hours of staring at the monitor, only, like, I can only remember 1 or 2 instances where we had to redo a take because we walked in between too many walls and the image got messed up. And granted, we weren't hundreds of yards away from each other. The monitor, the iPad was only like maybe 20, 30 feet distance from you at one time, but still, I can totally relate to the tethering as well because I've been the AC on the other end having to be dragged around by the camera operator on different shoots places, and it's just... Anyway, pulling focus is fun. I enjoy it.
Would highly recommend that.
Not as easy as it looks.
Would highly recommend that upgrading to the RS2 with the Pro combo, because you get that for basically, I think, like with the extra money, just upgrading to the Pro combo. It might come with the normal one, but I'm pretty sure it only comes with the Pro combo if I remember properly. But I think you only get it. I mean, that with the focus gears and stuff, and I mean, technically, I think it's only like $100, but you can buy it separately, I believe, too. But
do you know if so? Is that a DJI only product? And also, does it have to go off of a Wi-Fi transmission, or is it its own router? If that makes sense.
It's its own Wi-Fi. So like we could be out in the middle of nowhere, I think, and as long as because like I had to log you in on a iPad, so like I had to go through your Wi-Fi, and then find the device on the Wi-Fi, type in the password, and then it connects.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know on the day up until like just now if we were connected to like the location's Wi-Fi router, and then it was kind of like an in-between, or if it was direct to connect. That's cool.
It's direct to the device. It's pretty crazy. I've never used another one thus far in my career, but this being the first one, it set the bar pretty high. So I don't know if that's normal, but it's definitely a good one just to have that I just got because it came with the thing I got. So
it came with the Ronin.
Yeah.
Okay. Hashtag not sponsored, DJI.
Right. Well, but I love you.
I also am a
sponsor
fan. I will admit I enjoy a good Mavic flight as well as a Ronin rig. With that being said, I also want to make sure that we can feature some of your previous work other than AnyTask. Is there anything you wanted to cover on AnyTask before we move on?
I don't think so. We don't have much to talk about, seeing as we still have 2 full shoot days left on AnyTask, but
right. As of this point in time.
As of this point in time.
Correct. Okay, cool. So with that being said, whenever I bring on someone like a DP photographer, anyone that might have potential portfolio to show, I also want to make sure that I can showcase people's talents and skills, both verbally through the conversation and also tangibly with any portfolio they're willing to show. So what we're going to do right now in this case is play your reel. For those of you who are listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, if you've listened to the show before, by now I'm sure you know what's coming. Feel free to go check out the YouTube video, and we will be seeing you guys in a second once we are back from rolling your DP reel. So without further ado, roll film. All right. So for those of you who may not be aware, who are just coming back from the reel that we just watched, Cameron, how many years have you been in the industry doing this professionally now?
It would have been one in January.
Really?
Yeah. Like I've been,
I knew it was short, but that's crazy.
it's so weird because I feel like I've done so much and I've had so much growth in just a year. But I guess behind the scenes, I've been doing it for a lot longer. I've been doing like YouTube stuff for 3 years now, maybe going on 4. But it started out just with my phone, and then not to get too much in the backstory, but my entire career taking it seriously and like pursuing it and like knowing what I want to do as a cinematographer has only been since about January. So essentially, my entire professional career thus far has been in quarantine.
Jeez.
So, like when we met at the gear show for Ohio HD, I had just made my first film, and we had just wrapped on it basically.
I remember calling you before that, I think, a little bit. Like, this is getting into my backstory as well, and I don't want to go too much into story time just yet because that'll be a little later. But the reason I asked that question initially, because I knew you had just quote unquote started, and that's not to demean your efforts in any way, but more so to just be like, you are not only are taking it seriously, but you're also hustling your butt off.
I'm trying.
And it's like showing the real wise. Like, I'm not, like, no one's going to claim that to be on like Roger Deakins level, but for literally only now that I know, being in here for like a year or a little more, like, that's not bad. Like, you only have so many projects under your belt, but what's there is good. And so that's also part of the reason why, aside from us being friends, I wanted to have you on the show, is because like I want to get this guy more work.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, and that's genuine. That's not me, like I said, buttering you up or anything. And not to flex on my end of things as well, but professionally, like, I've been taking this seriously for about 7 years now. However, I can relate because I just got out of high school the summer before quarantine.
Right.
And so I'm in almost the same boat where I've only been able to take it seriously, quote unquote, full time, while still doing online classes since like summer 2019.
Right.
And so it's like, I'm in the same boat almost. I haven't been focusing solely on cinematography, so I don't necessarily have the reel to go up to bat, as it were, with you. But I would hope and think, in different areas, similar experience. So moving off of that, you talked about sort of a second ago where you and I first met. I'd love to get into our interaction at Gear Show. But before we get too far away from the reel that we just watched, I want to touch on a few different projects, and then we'll get into a little bit more on story time, I suppose,
Sure.
if you want to call it that. With the project that you and I first met on, or worked together on professionally, that was Instant Coffee with Strangers, which was directed by Thomas Gardner, produced by Philip May. As far as I'm aware, it hasn't gotten a lot of publication, but it was definitely a fun learning experience for me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it was super fun for everyone involved on leadership, but that's because I was gaffer / BTS on that.
You were there on the best day.
Right.
Out of the shooting
I was
days.
only there for one day. And that, in my opinion, was a good shoot. However, backstory-wise, don't really want to unnecessarily bash anybody, but I heard there were some issues with that shoot. What are some things that you learned kind of on the day for that, which I believe there's 1 or 2 clips on the reel showcasing?
Yeah, there's a few clips on there. Primarily the one with the people drinking out of a cup. They're at a picnic table. But yeah, so the project itself was a good way to get me back in, because I think that was that might have been the second project I ever worked on, like being a cinematographer at least. So I was like, this is what's going to get me back into it. I had just done one for winter film. So I was like, I was excited to get into it. And there was a lot of growing pains because I think we had a lot of people that were out of practice because quarantine had happened. So I think there was a lot of new people, and then including myself, who was still technically new for sure at that time, not really knowing what we wanted. We didn't really pre-plan. It was just like, here's the script, now let's go make it, sort of thing. We did some location scouting, but it was only really at one location, so it was at a rest stop. But that was definitely one of the biggest learning experiences I've had yet on a film, just as far as like almost knowing like what you don't want, because, and not to say that it was a bad film, because the content was there, and Thomas did a really good job, and his writing is really fun and interesting and thought provoking. But we just had a lot of technical issues that we just didn't foresee because of the fact that we had faith in the gear, and the gear let us down.
Uh-oh.
So, for instance, not to get too much in the weeds of it, but we had issues with audio, so that's where the film kind of just fell apart on that aspect. So good audio is very important, and getting it on the day is very important. And being next to a bunch of loud truckers, it turns out not a good idea. So we had a lot of issues being at a rest stop with a lot of traffic. It was right next to the highway. We had a lot of wind on at least the first day of shooting, and then we had we ran out of sunlight. It's just a lot of little issues that like I've learned so much now from those mistakes that we made of, you got to plan for multiple days. And I think where one of the big issues landed was also we filmed what was supposed to be on the same day about 2 months apart.
Oh dear.
So that was also not great. We just could not get schedules to line up, as far as like the crew and also the actors to be able to be there for anytime soon, because I think one of them was going out of town for a long time, and it was just kind of a mess in general. But I'm still proud of like most of the cinematography in it, even though it was like my second film I had ever done. But yeah, lots of learning experiences out of that one.
Well, still, I mean, even on the gaffing side, like I learned some stuff. Not saying that I am, all knowing and
Sure.
I know everything about. I like to say I know everything about nothing. There's always more to learn.
Sure.
But I totally agree. The wind was a huge issue for me personally because thankfully I had Jack Miller from Cincinnati, hopefully future guest of the show
Right.
at some point, coming up to help with G&E. He and I were sort of tag teaming the shoot, and an issue that we had was we had to wrestle a sail almost.
Yeah.
We brought a large sheet of diffusion to use because we knew we were going to be working outside, and we didn't necessarily have a lot of power to work with lighting wise. We had a few panels,
Yeah.
but like the wind was a huge issue for us because we were trying to hold up a large, like at least 10 by 10 sheet of diffusion to block the sunlight on top of the wind going everywhere with, actors'
The
hair.
same direction as you were holding up. It was like you were literally
Yes.
holding up a sail for a sailboat.
We were trying to hold back the wind to make sure that, your shot could not be overexposed.
Right.
And that's not saying, oh, look what we did
And even
for
just
you,
stop
but
the
it's more
wind
like
from hitting the mic.
there were problems everywhere. Like, yeah, we were also trying to protect the mic because we only had a dead cat for that. We weren't working with a blimp or anything like that. So yeah, there were certainly issues with that shoot, but definitely a learning experience for everybody. And
Yeah.
I think it was valuable for us in particular, you and I, because we, after that shoot, stayed in touch over Instagram and kept in contact. So let's maybe backtrack a little bit to beginning of quarantine in that case with Gear Show.
Yep.
There's a little bit of history there with myself with Ohio HD, and I regularly volunteered with them for Gear Show. We haven't had a second one this year that I'm aware of. If it did happen, I never heard about it.
Yeah, I don't
and now
think
that I'm
so.
thinking about it, it's now April when we're recording this.
Yeah.
Huh. Honestly, I haven't.
It would have happened a few days, like a week or
Yeah,
week or two ago.
it would have happened at least a couple weeks ago because normally they're like tail end of March or midway through March. Either way, up until when we had met, I had volunteered at Gear Show once or twice before. And that same day that you and I were there, I was running around trying to take care of vendors because that was kind of my role that I was there for, helping volunteer, making sure that they were taking care of the guys who worked for like Sony, Canon, Arri, all these brands that were represented at the show. Because it's sort of like, I like to call it the Comic Con for cameras.
Right.
And over the Midwest, it draws a lot of really good talent, and it's a really good networking experience. And speaking of networking, that's where you and I kind of first had our first in-person conversation. Do you remember what we talked about on that first day? I honestly don't, which is why I'm asking.
I don't think we had a lot of time to talk, and I think that was part of the problem because you had so much to do. It was more like, I think you messaged me on Instagram, and I was like, "Who's this guy?" I was like, "Oh, he does a lot of stuff," and I was like, "Oh, well, you might be a good person to get in contact with." And I don't know how we found out we were going to be at the Gear Show together. I think you might have posted about it on your story or something. I was like, hey, I'm going to that. And you're like, well,
Yeah, let's
come
meet
see
up.
me.
Probably is what I said, something
So
like that.
yeah, so we just met up. You're like, we met in person. We were like, oh, don't touch each other, COVID. And meanwhile, we're like this close to each other, like just face to face. And
There weren't masks. There wasn't a mask mandate at that
Nope.
point. But we had
we
hand
thought
sanitizer.
we thought it was only by like putting your hands in your mouth at that point, I think.
Something
So
like that.
anyway,
If I remember correctly,
whole
that
time
was
capsule.
yes, that was the day of lockdown.
The next day, I think it was the day that they shut everything down in Ohio.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember there being a mandate being put in place that day where you could only have a maximum event capacity of either 50 or 150 or something, and we were like just over that total for the day, but it was in and out because people were showing up and then leaving at different parts of the day.
I probably wasn't even aware of that at that time, that
Yeah.
that was even happening.
It's crazy.
I just remember going in there, meeting a few people, passing out the old business cards, and then falling in love with RE cameras, and then moving on.
Moving on with life. See you
Yep.
next year, Ari.
Yeah, I was like, oh yeah, I'll be back, I'm sure.
Did you get one of the hats?
Yes, I did. I got like
Nice.
everything. I got a shirt that I always wear. I love that shirt so much. And then I got a hat. I'm not much of a hat guy, so I don't wear the hat, but I have it hanging in my room.
Well, what I mean by that was like there were specifically Airy hats
Yeah.
that are like prime
Are they good?
merchandise for people who go to those events. Like
Oh, really?
it's kind of a thing for they run out really, really quick at OHD whenever Airy is there.
I was like one of the first people there, and I think they were still setting up when I approached them. I didn't even know what they were setting up at the time. And then they were like, oh, yeah, we have all this stuff. Do you want this stuff? And I was like, yeah.
Yeah, I like stuff.
They didn't have very much, so maybe I got like a limited supply of it there. So, but I got it like the shirt and then the hat.
Nice.
And then I feel like I got something else, but I don't remember. But it's pretty cool.
Either way, yeah. Not to linger on that too long, but that was a very interesting day, and I think marks a pretty good milestone in the relationship there. So moving forward from that, let's talk a little bit more about some of the other projects on your reel. There's two in particular that I wanted to at least touch on and give you the opportunity to share about. If there's anything interesting or stuff you learned from those projects, there's a project featuring a motorcycle, and forgive me, I don't remember the name.
Believe me, I had trouble enough naming it. So I think I settled on Autumn Ride, and it's only on my YouTube. I don't have it on my actual page on like my website, because it doesn't really have anything to do with what I do. It's not a short film. It's more of like my take at an ad, or like a short commercial, or like a product video. I just knew I was kind of in a drought of projects at the time, so I didn't like have anything going on. I had a buddy, his name's Ethan Cash, and he just has like this nice hipster aesthetic to him, and he has a nice motorcycle. And I was like, hey, do you want to like make something? Like he has the chops to be an actor. Like he wants to go into radio and stuff. So I'm like, he loves the camera. So I was like, hey man, do you want to potentially be like the star of this like short? You don't have to say anything. You just have to like ride your motorcycle and I'll capture it. And he's like, sure. So it was fall, and the leaves, I was waiting until the leaves were like a nice bright orange and red, because we had planned it like a month or two ahead of time, and I was like, once they get to a certain color, we're gonna try to get a day and go out and just film this in one day. So we started at like 5, and then it was just me, him, and his girlfriend, and a car and a motorcycle. So it was all shot with my Blackmagic broken out lenses and my Ronin S at the time. And for some of the shots, like I was like, his girlfriend was there, and I was like, his now fiance, I think, was there, and I was like, can you drive my car? And I'm just gonna sit in the back with the I have a CRV with the trunk open, and I'm just gonna like sit out the back and like hold the gimbal and hope I don't fall out. So I was focusing. I had my hand kind of in a claw shape like this. I had the gimbal resting on me with my strap, and my hand was maneuvering the focus while I was looking, and then hanging on with this hand to my car so I didn't fall out. So it was a whole thing. But I think it's like the third shot in my reel of him coming over the hill and him looking to the side, and I got it in slow motion. I was like, I love that shot so much. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's on my YouTube. So just Cameron Hanson with my profile picture, just like that's everything. It's just me with a camera. But I was really proud of that, because it was all shot in one day in like a matter of 2 hours, because the sun was going down, and we wrapped on the last shot as the sun was setting. And it's a little dark on the video, I'll admit, but at the same time, it was just like, I don't know. Like that video actually got shared on Rokinon's Instagram page.
Sweet.
So I was really happy about that. Like I just tagged them, wasn't expecting anything. And then they actually like contacted me and they were like, can we post this on our page? And I was like, yes, absolutely. You can do whatever you want with it. You want to turn it into commercial? I'll give it to you for free. So they did post it on their Instagram page. And so that was a pretty proud moment. I was like, this lens company that I enjoy is just like literally DM'd me asking they commented, and I think they DM'd me, and I had to like figure out a way to give them the video. But so that was really cool. That was a proud moment. I was like, man, I made it.
I mean,
it feels good. I don't know, when companies like that contact you and ask you for your work, that's pretty cool.
So early on too. And I mean, like that's within a year practically of,
I think it was like 6 months,
starting.
6 or 7, 8 months ish.
Still, I mean, the thing though is like, if you ever get reached out to by a Rokinon, by an Able Cine, by a Zeiss or an Arri or anyone like that, it's like, okay, like that we're getting somewhere.
Yeah,
that's cool. And I remember you posting about that a little. I was like, so proud of that guy.
Yeah, I thought about trying to give it to Honda because it's a Honda motorcycle, and I remember I had friends of mine approached me about like, you should like try to give this to them for free and then maybe they'll actually use it as like an ad or something. And I was like, maybe. The music's licensed from Artlist, and so technically it's commercial ready in theory. I still have the raw files and stuff, so it could be ready to go. So if anyone's watching them, they want it for something, let's do it. But yeah, it was just fun. It was just like that was like my experimental time with using all natural lighting. We use a single light. It was all the sun. It was all the sun and like what the Blackmagic could capture. And I was experimenting with speed ramping at the time of like, speeding up and then like suddenly going to slow motion. So that was the main reason. I just wanted to do it for fun. Like I didn't have any intention on like putting it anywhere besides my Instagram. It's just like, this is what I've been up to. I still do film things. Yeah. So, and then it ended up doing pretty well.
So I don't remember if we covered this earlier when we were talking about your rig and all that, but just to double check, you have the Blackmagic Pocket 4K, correct? Okay, just wanted to make sure that was out there in the public and I got it correct and it wasn't, misrepresenting.
Right.
Because there are multiple versions of the Pocket. With that being said, moving on to the second project with, I think it's called Christmas Alone. You're working with Caitlin Wilson. Was that also a Gardner production?
Yes. That's something he wrote. It's kind of inspired, I believe, by quarantine and not being able to see family over the holidays. So it's basically, that is on my website, and it's also on Vimeo under Thomas's account. And that was shot in a day, 2 days. I want to maybe 1 or 2 days. I can't remember. It was a long shoot, but with just the three of us, it was me, him, and Caitlin, and then that was it. I had like soft boxes that I set up and for lighting and inside, and then we used practicals for everything else. So that was fun, but we basically just about like Caitlin's character going through the motions of like being sad that she's not going to be able to see her family over the holidays because of quarantine and stuff like that. Like it begins with her like trying to relive her childhood, I guess, by going to a playground and kind of being inspired to change a little bit and to like be happy with just being by herself and finding joy and just being with you, being by yourself.
With the project going into I assume that was around Christmas time.
Mm-hmm. We wanted to release it before Christmas Eve, I think. So we tried to release it like a day or two before Christmas Eve.
Did you guys meet that mark?
Yep.
Sweet. Okay. That's kind of like what I was trying to get into is even though it was a small shoot, like even though you guys had either 1 or 2 days, like you said, scheduling stuff like December 20th, I shouldn't say that, maybe like December 10th through the 20th, 21st, 22nd, 23rd, anywhere in that time frame is usually really tough for people.
Yeah.
So was there any scheduling lessons you guys had to learn there, or what were some things that you guys like coming, you've worked on sets. What I'm trying to get to is with a lot of people, so to speak, quote unquote, for COVID standards, and with just now you, Thomas, and Caitlin.
Yeah.
What are some of the differences in your workflow as the DP? Are there more or less things to think about? That's kind of a silly question because obviously there's more if you're doing it by yourself. But just to give you an idea of what I'm trying to get to, what's your mindset change when going from delegated with little responsibility or lots of responsibility, I suppose? More things to handle.
Yeah. So with that, being only 3 people, I had to do a lot. Like Thomas had to focus a lot on the acting and also set design, and we all had to it took a long time, I think, just because we didn't have any hands. So it was just just the 3 of us. So I had to go set up the lights. I had to go make sure the camera was okay. And I had it on me the whole time. So I had the rig attached to me with a strap on my Ronin because luckily it's faster than setting up a tripod, make sure it's level and doing all this stuff. So that was kind of my go-to, especially for that sort of run and gun thing. We had to deal with the weather. We were like, is it going to rain? I have this very expensive rig that on me, and I had a trash bag in my pocket just in case to throw over it really quick. And it did rain. We sat outside under an awning for an hour and just waiting for it to stop, hopefully. And eventually it did, and it actually created a nice softbox glow on everything. So it was it's so weird. That's like I was talking about earlier, just
happy accidents,
filmmaking happy accidents of just wow, that actually looks pretty good. So I don't know. It's actually the beginning shot of my reel is 2 shots from that film of Caitlin going down a blue slide. She was perfect, man. We didn't even know if that playground was gonna work. We just were it kind of has to, so we're just gonna go there. So it goes back to just improving it and hoping that we can get it. We have a location, we have an actor, so let's just go make it work. And it worked really well with her blue mask and her pale blue mask with the dark blue slide and then her red coat. And I was like, man, that looks pretty good.
Yeah.
It was so weird. I was just really proud of that. That was when I first started getting into color grading too. So I have been delving into color grading more of my own stuff. And I was really proud of the grade on that one too. But so getting back to the main point, yeah, with 3 people, you have to do a lot. So we were always running around, making sure things look good. Some things slip through the cracks, then we notice and then be like, oh, okay, well, we got to move this light now. We got to move this over here. I had to pull focus for myself, which was kind of hard when I'm doing movements and walking and, doing certain crane shots that I would do for the film. Be a little difficult, but that's kind of part of the gig I got, I guess, for the way I shoot sometimes is I just make it work.
That's what you have to do sometimes. I mean, from the producing world, it's all about pre-plan ahead as much as possible to be able to mitigate problems before they occur.
Yeah.
Solve the issue before it becomes an even bigger problem not on the day, but in the weeks leading up to the shoot. And then if you do that adequately enough on the day, you will have much more energy than previously thought to be able to handle any fires that pop up that you need to put out or be able to mitigate any damages that may occur on the day because something is going to go wrong.
There's a finite, I feel I definitely believe there's a finite number, amount of decisions you can make in a day as a human. And for instance, on the day of our shoot recently for Any Task, I had my clothes laid out because I knew I did not want to wake up and decide what I was going to wear that day. So yes. I previously, I don't do that normally. I would do that when I was in school as a kid, but I don't do that as an adult anymore. But for things like shoot days, I go ahead and pre-plan what I'm going to wear. I make sure that everything's set to go, and all I have to do is either throw something quickly in a bag or it's already bagged or set up or in a case or something. So that way I have to make the minimal amount of decisions until I get to set.
Exactly. Saving brain power. That is huge for me personally moving forward, is something that I'm trying to do right now. And it's not something I've been able to implement yet, but something I really want to do is, since I wear a lot of hats, I produce, I camera op, DP, AC, BTS photo. I want to have even PA on larger shoots, higher end budget, just to be able to be in the space and learn and observe people. I do PA stuff.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is, if I am going onto a set the day before, I will load my car. If I'm responsible for bringing gear, I'll load the car or put everything that is able to be put in a trunk in the trunk, where it's like I'll keep the valuable stuff inside overnight, right? But prepare as much as possible going ahead. But what I really want to do is be able to have different bags that I can just grab and go, that'll have everything I need to be an AC. So if I'm bringing a monitor and a focus puller, like a nucleus to set, I'll have my monitor, my nucleus, bongo ties, notes for taking down camera specs, like, aperture, ISO numbers, stuff that are helpful for either reshooting or helpful for post to know.
Right.
Camera reports is what I'm trying to get at. Have everything that I need for the job in the bag so I can grab and go. If I'm a PA, have a bag filled with markers, snacks, a bottle of water, a towel. There's plenty of like small things that PAs can carry that are a huge help. Multi-tools, knives. Same thing for camera. Have my camera bag ready to go so I can just have that by the door, grab, and leave. Even having a spare change of clothes in there. Like, doing a lot of the thinking beforehand. I'm kind of going on a rant on this case, but and having that prepped before the shoot saves you so much brain power on the day, because you didn't have to spend it before you got there, which I think is your overall point as well. And I totally agree is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. I think it also, not to go off on a side tangent, but I think something that's totally undervalued in a lot of industries where you have to like hustle to be successful is sleep. And how much sleep you get, especially when it comes to like coming in on the top of your game the next day. If you have something the next morning, like I know a lot of people that never get adequate amounts of sleep, and I can be one of those people, but I try to get good amounts of sleep. I just think I'm bad at sleeping, and I can fall asleep at the drop of a hat. But I think at the end of the day, it's just like my quality of sleep isn't there yet. So I'm trying to figure that out. But I'm definitely a big advocate of naps for people if you need it. Some people don't need it, but for me, I'm definitely one of those people that if I'm not going, like if I'm not constantly on my feet, I'm probably gonna fall asleep. And I've been getting better about that with like diet and stuff, trying to figure out the proper amount of food for the day, like trying to eat breakfast more, because I never ate breakfast. In the past like couple days, I've been eating breakfast before things, and I've lasted all day, and I'm like, wow, this is awesome. I actually have energy for the day. So but I think a lot of people like think you always have to be on the grind in order to be semi successful. And they think that includes not sleeping. And I don't think that's true, because if you're just always burnt out and you're always really tired, who does that help? Like, for instance, like if you're up studying late, I like when in school, I wasn't exactly the best student or anything, but like I definitely valued getting to sleep at a decent time over staying up all night studying. I never stayed up all night studying at all, ever. I find the best way to do it, not here's your studying tips for the day, study before bed and then go to sleep, because that's supposedly the best way to retain information is if you want to learn something, watch something before bed. That's why almost subconsciously, I guess, I watch a lot of film videos, like how-to videos for film before I go to sleep. I always get really motivated before bed, and then I go to sleep. And then I find that I retain the information better. So maybe try that. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a brain doctor.
Advice.
But supposedly, if you study or look up something or try to retain information before you go to sleep, you're more likely to retain it in the morning. I think they found that if you were playing, I feel like I saw this on like the Joe Rogan podcast or something. But I heard that they found that if you play an instrument, like I'm a drummer, so if you're having trouble getting down like a rhythm or something, or like a whole piece on like a violin or something, if you play it a few times before you go to sleep, I think it's like you're 45% more likely to remember it when you wake up. So don't take my word for it, but that's from my understanding, that is the case.
Never heard that. That's like, okay. I mean, on the point of sleep, I totally agree. And that's something I'm currently working on as well. I want to be open and upfront about this. Right now, I am struggling in that department. And that's partially because of my own lack of self-discipline and also COVID. Right. I don't want to, make COVID the cop-out here. But genuinely, my schedule got so messed up due to decisions that I made during COVID that it's not like, super life-altering, bad, horrible decisions, but it's more like with COVID being a thing, I was driven inside just like everyone else.
Sure.
And I turned into a night owl, more so than I was already. And before, I was a night owl. And I considered like going to bed at 1 or 2 a.m. being a night owl before. Now I think that's going to bed early.
Yeah.
I am now up until like 4 or 5 a.m. and I'm like, I got to fix this, because doing podcasts now, like we're doing here, going on to shoots, having lunch meetings, doing networking, I forget that people live lives where they get up at 5, 6 a.m. or even 8 or 9. And to me, that is like, I am asleep at those points during the day now.
Can I tell you something about that?
Yeah.
I think in my experience, I'm still working on it, but in my experience, consistency's key. Like creating a schedule of waking up and going to sleep around the same time, trying to, because obviously with our lifestyle, it can be hard, especially if you like you have a shoot until late or something.
Yeah.
But on those off days, having like a set time, like I right now, I would like to eventually make it earlier, but right now I go to sleep around 8:30, or I wake up around 8:30 every day. I try. Some days are easier than others. Like today, I popped right up, and I don't know why. I just was like, today was just raring to go, because I think of, maybe it was the interview. I was like, the little podcast and stuff, so I was like probably excited. But I popped right up today, and but yeah, I try to go to bed around midnight every night, but at least be in bed by like 11:30 or something, just chilling.
Popping out of bed used to be an everyday thing for me back before COVID and back when I was in high school.
Yeah.
And that was like, it was one of those things that I took for granted that I so wish I had now, because nowadays I wake up, if I get to bed by like 2 a.m. Or even 1 a.m., I consider that a victory. And it's start from where you're at and slow going. It's a small victory in this case, but what I'm trying to get at is, right now, if I go to bed at 1 or 2 a.m., I'll wake up probably anywhere from 10 to 10 onwards. If I get up at 10 a.m., I don't get up at 10 a.m. I open my eyes and I realize, oh, I'm awake now. But the difference between now and back then is that I could open my eyes and immediately register and know and start thinking about what I was going to do that day, and that got me out from under the blanket. But nowadays, like currently, I wake up at 10 and my brain is a fog. It's a mess. It's not, I don't think about anything. I'm just like, okay, I'm awake. What time is it? I'm tired. I want to go back to bed. And then I fall back asleep until noon. And that's when I'm like, okay, I need to get up now.
Right.
And that's been the perspective shift. Is I'm not going to say I don't have anything that'll get me out of bed, because I'm very grateful to have the opportunities I'm currently working on, and there's stuff that is on my plate that I have to do. But I'm missing that drive or that ability to just wake up and be like, okay, yeah, let's go. I don't have that anymore, and I used to, and it was something I took for granted.
I think something we talked about before we went on air is working out, and I think back when I used to work out consistently, back before the dark times of COVID-19, that's what got me out of bed. I'd be like, let's go, because I knew as soon as I was done, I would do it in the morning, and I wouldn't even get up that early. Like some people get up at like 5 a.m. I would get up like around 8:30, and I would go in and then have the rest of the day after that to feel good and reap the benefits and go to work and stuff. But with that being gone, it's hard to feel motivated, because like before I looked forward to that, and every day I would have something to look forward to with that at least. And I'm sure you're in the same boat with that too.
Yep.
But
yeah, before that was, I started consistently going to the gym every day, except for like I did 6 on, 1 off. So that was, I had a 3-day routine where I would focus on one area of my body on Monday, different area Tuesday, different area Wednesday, and then the cycle would repeat. And so that's a cycle of 3, 2 times a week, and then one day would be off, where I didn't go to the gym. That was like September, October 2019, and I got into a good rhythm, and partially that was also because I had a friend going with me, good guy, his name is Garrett Bailey, a really, really long-time friend, hopefully future guest on the show as well. He's directed a few projects, and he's part of the main reason why I got into filmmaking. Yeah. He's one of those, he's at like that level of friendship. And so we go way back. Point being, we went to the gym together. Both of us wanted to start getting a little bit more into shape, and so if I have a fun fact about me, if anyone wants to get me on a project, I put a lot of more effort into something, or I am more excited about any endeavor if there is other people involved that I can help contribute to or work alongside.
Mm-hmm.
It is much harder to get Chris to work on a project, Chris being me, if it is just me. If I
Right.
have other people involved that I can either hang out with or do this project with or contribute in some way alongside, that motivates me a lot more. So going to the gym was attractive on its face, but also having Garrett to go with was also huge. And so that got me out of bed as well, because I knew Garrett would be waiting for me, or I could beat Garrett to the gym and rub it in his face.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was sort of the mindset waking up every morning, like you were talking about. And we were consistent from like September, October 2019 up until March 2020 when COVID happened. And then everything fell apart and I became an extreme night owl. I was totally productive during 2019, during COVID though.
Yeah.
Got on plenty of sets and have grown a ton since then. Lots of life lessons learned, tons of experience gained. I now am confident in G&E more so than I was before at that starting at the gym time period where I was just sort of in camera and doing a little bit of the higher up leadership stuff. But now it's camera, producing, G&E, directing photography, BTS photo, all kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Rant over, but what I'm trying to say is I relate.
Yeah. I think the most fun I have on set is when I get to be physical. Like, for example, the fight scene we were doing. Like, I was tired, sure, but I wasn't that tired. I loved it. It reminded me of going to the gym again and, like, being able to jump around and, like, be physical. And then you get those same endorphins as like, I love lifting weights. I hate cardio. I feel like a lot of people hate cardio. But, yeah, I love lifting weights and stuff. So being able to, like, jump around and move the camera around, like, arms hurting, like, feeling a little bit of a sweat going on. It really just felt like being back at the gym, and I got those same like feelings like that I would get as I was there. And to your point of like wanting to be with somebody, I could never work out with anyone else at the gym. Like if I went with somebody, I would feel as though I'm competing with them on a bad level, because they would always like, at least when I first started, and people would be like, come to the gym with me, and I'd be like, okay, and then I would have to do the same things they do even though I wasn't ready. So going by myself, I set my own goals for myself, and I could do the machines I wanted to do or lift the weights I wanted to, and I wouldn't have to rely on anybody else. Also, that's where I started listening to podcasts, and I would absolutely credit podcasts to the reason I actually kept going to the gym for a year and a half straight, because without finding podcasts, I can't listen to music. Some people listen to music.
Yeah, I'm one of those guys.
I just can't do it. Like I like music. Music's been a huge part of my life for as long as I can remember, but I just cannot. Even I get one song. I think it's because I'm too picky about like I don't like hardcore workout songs like they get you pumped up. Like I do, but I can't listen to them over and over again. They're like 2 to 3 minutes. I need something more long term that gets my mind off of what I'm doing, not to pump me up for it. So like I like listening to podcasts while I work out because it makes me think about other things that aren't my body hurting. So I don't know. For instance, like I would listen to a podcast called Dear Hank and John with Hank and John Green. They're both YouTubers and authors and stuff, and they always would always like talk about funny things or like science facts or something, and that would get my mind off of what I was doing. But I would be able to focus just enough on the technique of what I was doing, but without being like, wow, my arms hurt like crazy. But like, haha, here's a fun fact about science I just learned. So I don't know. Maybe I'm weird, but I just can't do music. Podcasts are my way to go with that.
No, I don't think you're weird at all. Like plenty of people listen to podcasts instead of music while they're working out. And here's the way I like to look at it. When it comes to music, both music and podcasts, but more so music, I think music in general is the language that is universal. Mm-hmm. It is the mode of communication that everyone can understand even if you don't speak English, like I just struggled to do a second ago. With podcasts, I think it's a similar format, although most of the podcasts that we would listen to are in English, unless you have some sort of second language that I don't know about.
I don't.
But
I do not.
With that being said, I think if you listen to music or podcasts while you're working out, the point is to have something to help encourage or get your mind off of the activity that you're putting yourself through in order to build your strength and build your muscle. Right. I think that's key as well, to be able to prep your body for physical exertion that happens on a set. If you are a camera operator, especially, whether you're doing steady cam work, or if you're going to be working an easy rig or doing handheld, you need to be physically able to hold up that chunk of metal and plastic for minutes, if not hours on end for takes, and it can really wear someone out. That's also a motivator for me to get back into exercising.
That's the reason I got into working out.
Yeah.
Because I knew I wanted to start doing camera work. And I was like, if I want to hold bigger cameras, I'm going to have to be able to be fit.
Yes.
And I was always like fine and like athletic, I guess, kind of. I did like marching band in high school and stuff. I was in the drum line and stuff. So I was used to carrying heavy equipment all the time. I held drums on my chest for like hours on end. So I was like, I'm used to having a rig on me of some sort. So that was a big help with like my core and stuff at the time. But obviously I stopped doing that eventually, and I started to notice that like, I want to be able to do this and I want to have no problem. I want to be able to like go jump off of things with people and like hold a camera at the same time and have no problem. So that was like a huge motivator for me to actually go to the gym at the beginning.
Diet as well. I mean, we're preaching about exercise and diet right now. I by no means think that I am I think arbiter may be the right word. Representative. I am not the model for
me either.
What we're talking about. Neither of us are, but I think I heard it said a little while ago somewhere in my ingestion of information that mindset is the first step to execution, essentially. It could be phrased a little bit differently. What you think then contributes to how you act. So one of the first steps to getting to that point of what we're quote unquote preaching right now is to think it and believe it.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of why I'm mentioning this, and I'm glad we're talking about it, is that yes, we both recognize it's important. Am I personally, just speaking for myself, because that's the only person I can speak for right now, am I at a place where I am engaging in these activities and following through on what we're talking about right now? Absolutely not.
I think it's hard to. I don't think it's anybody's fault.
There.
Like, because like we talked about this earlier. I don't know if we mentioned it on air yet, but like just with COVID, like we've had to stop. Like,
yes.
I don't feel safe going to the gym at the moment until I'm fully vaccinated. So I once that day comes and I feel good, I'll start going again, and I'll obviously abide by the mask rule if they have one there. So I have no problem with that at all. But at the moment, I stopped going because I didn't feel safe. So, but eventually, like things you can do are just treating your body well and listening to your body and trying to eat well, which is something I struggle with all the time. So that's something I'm trying to get better at, just like making food instead of just like going and ordering food or something, or just eating like chips all the time. It's hard. It's not easy, and that's why not everyone can do it. So
right. That's I want to follow up on what I mentioned a second ago, where the intent needs to be there first before the action can be taken. And in some cases, like for my case specifically, I am still in the intent stage where I am now, I am someone who needs to learn the hard way. And so right now, sleep quality, down the drain, absolutely terrible. I am only getting anywhere from, depending on if it's like before a shoot day, most likely if I am responsible for a lot of stuff, like with any task, day one, I only ran off of 2 to 3 hours of sleep because I was up all night putting extra paperwork together, making sure that we had our crafty purchased, all these other things that I needed to take care of. Hard lesson to learn, but I'm learning. Stuff like that, where if you're taking care of something before a shoot, chances are you're going to be up late. The goal is to get to a point where you can go to bed at 9 p.m. before the shoot day, where you're getting there at a reasonable call time, anywhere from, 7 to 9 a.m., go to bed at that 10 o'clock hour and be perfectly, like, within reason, relaxed. Not everyone can be stress and anxiety free before a shoot. People have said if you don't have the butterflies the night before, something's wrong.
I got it going up to the house like that day. It's scary. When you might know people on set, but I don't know if it goes away until you're somebody like Roger Deakins or something like that. It probably doesn't go away. I
don't think it does. But the point I'm trying to get, before we get too far off from exercising, is right now I am not going to the gym consistently. I am not exercising at home, but I am thinking about it. I am planning it. I am trying to get to that point. And I think that's the important thing is, obviously you won't get anywhere if you never execute. but one of the first steps to getting to a place where you can execute is identifying the way I'm living right now is a problem. I need to change what I'm eating, when I'm eating it, how much sleep I'm getting, and how much exercise I'm doing. And that will ultimately allow you to take those steps to then execute. And once that execution happens, yeah, it'll be hard. You'll make decisions that you aren't really happy with in the moment because you never really want to go to bed. In my case, I shouldn't say you. I never really want to go to bed and quit working on whatever I'm working on.
Right.
But being able to sleep and get good rest and wake up in a better mood and then feed my body early on in the morning to get energy for the day, like you were talking about,
Yeah.
I think is going to be huge once I get to that point. I'll keep you posted.
Yeah, absolutely. It's self-awareness combined with willpower is what it sounds like. Just, you got to, like you said, you got to be aware of the situation before you can do anything about it. And you got to accept it. So, but
being able to detect, yes, and also dealing with distractions, being able to, ooh, this is a good one. I think, did you say willpower a second ago? So I have a crafty snack drawer in my room that I sleep in, where I have stuff like chocolate chips, Rice Krispies, also healthy stuff like nuts, a little bit of fruit, Fig Newtons. Not that Fig Newtons are like a really healthy thing, but
could be worse.
It could be worse, exactly. Granola bars, stuff like that. There are times when I'm in an editing session at like 1 a.m. and I go to the drawer and it's like, do I want a Rice Krispie or do I want a banana? Just to give an example, I don't really eat a ton of bananas, but opposite side of the spectrum. There will be times where I put down the Rice Krispie and take the banana, but there will be also times where I take the Rice Krispie. Most of the time what I'm trying to get to now is not eating anything at all, because the thing that I didn't say is whenever I go to the drawer, I'm not hungry.
Yep.
I just want something to eat, which is strange because I've noticed that over the past few weeks where it's like I am now starting to eat very late at night and I am not hungry. Like I have my stomach is not growling at me. I don't have any hunger pains.
You want to know something?
I'm noticing that I'm not hungry, and it's kind of scaring me because it's getting into the point, and yes, I would love to in a second. It's getting to a point where it's like, am I starting to eat out of boredom or eat out of like, it's something that I'm paying attention to, and I don't know why it's there, but it's interesting. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, you want to know something about a good thing I learned recently was a friend of mine, Elaine Smith, who does intermittent fasting and stuff. I don't think there's any science to back this up, but it makes total sense once you hear it, is that he doesn't eat before bed anymore. Like, I guess, like, I do this all the time. I used to do this all the time. I've just recently stopped because he felt as though, why would you want your stomach to be like churning up food and digesting food while you're trying to sleep? It should be sleeping. It shouldn't be doing anything. So I would always eat before bed because I'd be like, well, I'm hungry. I want to eat. So I'd just like eat a snack or something, or like cookies or something before bed. And then I would immediately go to sleep on like a full stomach. And then my stomach's digesting sometimes I would even eat dinner right before bed because like my dinner's still all messed up on time. Like I eat so late at night sometimes. But so I've set myself a new rule of not eating anything past 9. And I'm trying to at least starting the meal at 9 and then going to bed at midnight. So that way, by the time I'm actually going to bed, everything's hopefully digested by that point. And then I can go to bed without any distractions. And just, if I'm hungry, I just try to chug water, or, pro tip, pickle juice is good, to quench if you are hungry, but you potentially are just eating out of boredom. Like just drink like a little bit of pickle juice and it goes away, from my experience anyway.
These are some interesting tips you're giving today.
I know. I listen. I'm like a cesspool of knowledge. I'll tell you that.
Well, I should note as well, almost the most important thing that I meant to say for the previous point that I had about the banana and the Rice Krispie, or just replace whatever 2 items that you have in your snack drawer, if you have a snack drawer, is that
Step 1, don't have a snack drawer.
Yes. Step 2, be able to say no. Have you seen, I see this thrown around in a lot of like the education system, or there's a lot of willpower people that talk about this. There's a study that was done in young children about being able to put aside or say no to a marshmallow.
Yeah.
I hope you know what I'm
I've
talking
seen that
about.
video.
Where it's
I've seen videos about it.
It's like a test of being able to decline immediate satisfaction for
Long-term gratification.
Long-term gratification. That's kind of how I'm looking at it right now. It's not necessarily in terms of hunger, but sleep quality. So do I want to eat this piece of chocolate? Do I want to have this bag of chips now right before I go to bed and potentially lose sleep quality? And the thing is, the strange part is I'm not hungry. My tongue just wants me to eat something sweet or have something to munch on. Do I want to have that munchy thing, or do I want to get better sleep because I am gratifying that want to munch or snack on something immediately, or I am increasing sleep quality and having a better day tomorrow? You're right about the digestion thing as well, I should say. I was talking with Grip on set on a shoot I was on a few weeks ago, and he was telling me about digestive health, and he's studied up on this, and he was saying anything eaten past, if you're having a quote-unquote normal sleep schedule, like going to bed anywhere from 9 to 11, even 8 to 11, anywhere in there, if you are eating anything past 7:30, like that's going to cause indigestion and digestion problems. And I was like, I never really thought about that. And we had a whole discussion about nutritional health and all that. This was over lunch break on set. Point being, I am now trying to take that to heart as well. Anytime like past 9, like you were saying, if I go to the snack drawer, it's like, I'll hold that Rice Krispie treat up and think about it, or that piece of chocolate or chips or whatever it is. And I'll be like, no. And I'll put it back in the drawer. I did that last night.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, pat on the back, me, good job. But, it's tough. It's not easy to do, like you were saying.
Well, so a little backstory on me. I used to live in a house on Ohio State's campus with like 3 other guys, and I lived in what we refer to as the penthouse suite because it was just an attic that was like converted into like it felt like a little studio, honestly. I had everything up there. I like never went downstairs. So anyway, all my food was up there. I had like a microwave. That was when I was eating awful. I was going to the gym, and the only reason I wasn't like awful and like feeling like crap all the time was because I was going to the gym. I was eating like crap, but then going to the gym, and then so it was kind of balancing each other out. So anyway, I think one of the best things I did was when I moved, I didn't have my food in my room anymore. And so I try, not that I'm exactly the model to go off of for this by any means, but some tips for anybody. Obviously, just try not to have, I would say for you, Chris, don't have a snack drawer in your room. You can have a snack drawer elsewhere.
Let me write that down.
But I don't know. I just feel like that was such a temptation for me, because then I would look over and be like, oh, those chips look pretty good over there. Might as well just go grab them and leave them on my desk. And then they're on my desk, and then I go to my desk again, and I'm like, well, they're right here. I might as well eat them. So I struggle with that now. I bring food in my room, and I eat in my room, like watching on my like YouTube and stuff on my computer, and then I leave it there, and then I come back. And I'm like, okay, well, they're still there. I might as well eat a few. And then the few turns into a lot. So it's a whole thing. So as far away as I can keep the food to where if I have to go and get it, it's a commitment to like go out and like make something or something like that. So still struggling, but definitely figuring out little tactics for myself. Is this a film podcast?
I don't know. I mean, anymore. It's we
talked about the film stuff. Now this is who I am, I guess.
Exactly. I mean, that's the whole fun thing about this show is that yes, we get a lot of the industry stuff up front, and then we get into backstory, which we haven't even talked about yet. We'll get into it.
You're still here. Thank you.
Yes, if you are still listening to this, I really, really, really appreciate it from the host perspective, and I'm sure Cameron, as the guest, does as well.
That's the best podcast I like, though. By the way, I love podcasts that like have a theme, but then they talk about their lives. So hopefully you're that type of person. I know some people are like, I thought this was going to be a film podcast, or I thought this was going to be about this. Why are they talking about their lives? It's like, well, you know, people are people. People got to talk.
And people have lives. That's exactly the fun part.
I would say I was definitely, as the song goes, I was born a rambling man. So I tend to go off on tangents a lot. So hopefully if I continue to do that too much more, I don't know. Maybe that's a good thing for a podcast, but you can stop me whenever.
What's so interesting as well on a similar vein is video games. We've talked about this a few times on the show previously, especially our first episode. We had some really good thoughts from Nate on this, but you can almost have a similar vein of thought when it comes to that temptation aspect. Either video games or just like TVs in general. Growing up, like my family, my parents never let me have my computer or my TV in my room when I was younger. because my dad especially strictly enforced, I suppose, a mindset of your room is a place to rest and your room is a space for you to relax. And that's because he knew that the type of video games that I liked were very stress and adrenaline inducing.
Sure.
And so those two things weren't really going to jive. At this point in my life, I do have my workstation and my computer and my console. I've got a PlayStation 4 in my room. And I can see why he thought that way. But at the moment, it was like I'm still able to get sleep in my room, and I don't see it as that big of a deal as to what he was making it out to be, although the temptation aspect is totally there. And that was also a big thing that Dad used to talk about. So we've had a little bit of a discussion about, snacks and all that, but what's your thoughts on like recreation in that sort of same mindset as well?
Yeah, I think taking time for yourself is always important, regardless of what it is. It could be reading, it could be playing video games, it could be going on a walk, it could be whatever you like even going to the gym or something. I think in a creative field like ours, it's important to recharge your batteries in whatever way you need to. So playing video games, as long as it's like, I feel like you've previously said, in moderation, it's always good. But I mean, sometimes you just got to take a day and you just want to like turn your brain off and play like some Warzone or something, or Fortnite or something. And I don't personally see, as long as it's not like interfering with your day-to-day life, I don't see that as a problem. If you have work you got to do, then do it. But if you if you don't, or like if you know for a fact you can put it off and like I got a due date, but like today I just need this to myself. I need today to myself to recharge a little bit and get my mind off of things, or just not think about work for a minute. I see nothing wrong with that. I think that's good. I do that a good amount of I'll spend like a few hours playing video games, and then like if you're not motivated, you're not motivated. And if you sometimes it's hard to force yourself to be motivated. Like that's why I usually do editing and planning at night, because during the day, like after work, I come home and the last thing I want to do is like, unless I'm really motivated for some reason, like I just had like a spark of inspiration, is go and like make a previs thing or like go edit something, or I guess that's kind of all I do right now at the moment for that kind of stuff. But
no worries.
Planning, I guess. So I find that like playing video games or like watching YouTube for a little bit is a good way to recharge the old batteries, and I think more people should take that into account. Kind of just, if I'm preaching anything, I guess this episode, it's self-care and like taking care of yourself and listening to your body, and not thinking that the grind mentality is going to be the end all be all, because if you're burnt out, you'll be burnt out and there's no point anyway. So yeah, I don't see anything wrong with recreational video games, and especially if you have a good time doing it, because why would you want to put off something you're having a good time doing?
Yeah, if you enjoy it genuinely and it's bringing you some form of pleasure or happiness in the present sense, I totally agree that you should be able to partake and experience in those things. I don't personally see the point in negating that recreation without purpose. I've been a proponent in the past and still am about getting off of video games, mainly because, and I think I also talked about this in Nate's episode, was that it was an addiction that I had previously, where my mind was in a state when I played them that 5 to 8 hours was just enough for me to be satisfied. Whereas nowadays it's like I can't really play any longer than an hour or 2 or 3 of one particular game without getting bored, and having to either go back to working because that's what's stimulating my brain, or find a different game to play. And so I'm glad.
I think that's just getting older too.
Yeah, that's also true. I'm glad that I am now out of that state of mind, but it was a problem before, and that's why I had to cut everything out and come back to it in moderation. And and there's nothing wrong with doing recreational activities such as gaming. People give it a really bad rap for different cultural and even political reasons, which don't really need to go there. But in regards to like my gaming experience. It was a big part of my childhood, and also I would think a large contributor to how I got into the industry.
Sure.
Because that's kind of how I started in 2013. Was editing gaming videos with my friends, and we posted them online. We were trying to do the YouTube thing, and I ended up enjoying being on set in the process of producing and creating a film more than playing my games and recording stuff online with friends. So I kind of went away from the YouTube route and then got on to production. Speaking of childhood, I'd love to get your background, if you're game, not to use a bad pun, for how you started in the field. And if you don't have, this is what I tell people a lot too, is you don't have to go back to when you were born or anything.
It all started the
exactly
day I was born.
How far back does it go? Like, I want you to be comfortable with sharing stuff. So if stuff is super sensitive, no need to put that out publicly. But whatever you're comfortable with sharing in regards to your backstory and how you got into this field, I'm sure that everyone would love to hear it. So
yeah, I think a good place to start is growing up in the age when YouTube was a thing, like first a thing, and no one really knew what it was. No one knew what it was for. I remember not even being allowed to go on YouTube because my mom didn't know what it was. And like, she'd be like, "You're not allowed to go on YouTube." I'd be like, "Oh, okay, sorry." It was like a bad website. I was like, what am I going to find on here? So it was just because she didn't know what it was either. It was just like the fear of not knowing. So anyway, fast forward like a year or two, and YouTube became more popular, and my friend had a little like SD video camera like that he got for Christmas one year. He lived down the road from me, and so he would start making videos of himself and posting them on YouTube, and I was like, that looks kind of fun. Can I be in your videos and stuff? So like we kind of just like eventually, to skip a few years, throughout grade school, we would make sketches and videos and just completely improv everything. And we tried to make music videos and fun stuff, and we would just post them all on YouTube. And I think they're still there somewhere because we don't have access to the accounts anymore. So they're all just permanently on there forever.
Oops.
So, yeah, they're somewhere. But fast forward to like middle school, like the pressures of being a middle school kid, and trying to be cool, and like what's cool. And like if you make one little mistake, you're like blacklisted from ever being cool and stuff. And apparently really caring about that as a child, I just totally abandoned that entire aspect of something I really enjoyed because people thought it wasn't cool. Like people that did YouTube and thought they were little YouTubers were like not cool at my school for some reason. Even though now looking back, I'd be like, that's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. So, but anyway, so I kind of abandoned that whole kind of like passion, I guess. We had so much fun doing it, and eventually we just got burnt out, I guess. But so I stopped, high school comes around. I got into like musicals and stuff like that. So I even acted in that stuff. Had a few lead roles in our high school musicals and stuff. And, that kind of ignited something in me. I didn't know what it was yet. I thought at that point I wanted to be involved with like arts management because I was in high school marching band. I was in high school choir. I was in musicals. I did our variety shows and had like 5 to 8 acts in them, and like did all this stuff. A lot of it music oriented, at least at the beginning. And so I thought I wanted to go into arts management, which is actually a degree path at Ohio State. And I didn't know what I wanted to do out of high school. Like it was like senior year, and I was like, I have no idea. I have no idea what I want to do. So I had somebody suggest to me, like, be a band director, go into arts management and go like curate a museum or something. And that sounded cool to me. I was like, sure, or potentially go run a concert venue. I thought that's what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to be involved with the arts in some way, but I didn't know what that was, and I was hoping I would find it in school. So fast forward a little bit more, go to Ohio State, or try to go to Ohio State, get rejected basically because my grades weren't good enough and sent to like a satellite campus. And so I decided I want to be in Columbus because being a part of the Ohio State marching band was always a passion of mine and dream. So ended up later on doing that, going to Columbus State though at the same time. Meanwhile, at Columbus State, I was doing some coursework and going to their library, and I had my little MacBook Air that my dad gave me, and it had Final Cut Pro on it, and it's always been there, and I would just be there, and my dad was like, Yeah, I just have it on there. I bought it for, editing family videos, which looking back is a little overkill for family videos. But it was like the whole version and everything. And so I was like, yeah, let's open it up. Like one day I was bored at the library. I got everything done. I was just watching YouTube videos at that point and just waiting for another class to start. So I opened it up and I was like, you know what? I'm kind of like missing my friends from high school. So I just like I airdropped all of our old videos that we made in high school of like stupid slow-mo stuff when like slow-mo on iPhones came out, and like funny like Snapchat videos that we would get of each other like at lunch and stuff. And I just compiled them into a whole video on Final Cut. And I was like, exported it, sent it to him, and then that was that. I was like, well, that was kind of fun. That was like easier than I thought. I always thought editing was hard, and I was like, because at that point I had never edited. I had never even opened editing software before in my entire life. Even though I was doing YouTube videos with my friends, he would always edit them later on. So I had no experience. It was easier than I thought. Fast forward a few more years, I got a GoPro for Christmas, and decided I wanted to start doing stuff with that. So I would like go around, and some of my friends and I would go and like explore abandoned places for a little bit. And like I would get videos of that, go home, edit it, and then post it to YouTube or something. And that was fun for a little bit until I realized how dangerous that was, and then we stopped. So, fun stories from that and stuff. But that kind of got me into editing full videos to music and stuff. So I had no idea about like licensing music at that point and stuff. So they always got like copyright strikes and like, oh, this video got claimed by so-and-so artist, and be like, oh man, got me again. So, and then of course, fast forward a little bit more, I start getting a little more handy with my phone, and eventually invest in a DSLR, which was a Canon T6i. So that was my first actual video camera, I guess you could say. And got inspired a lot by Peter McKinnon and that sort of like YouTube group of like filmmaker, cinematographer people that make pretty stuff. So I was like, I want to be a photographer, videographer. That's what I want to do. I think I'll just do that on the side for fun. So I just started like videoing things, like doing vlogs and stuff. And eventually I found out while at a BW3s that somebody in the band was doing a video production degree at Ohio State. And I was like, I didn't even think of that as an option for school. I was like, I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know you could do that. So that kind of changed my whole outlook of like, could I do this as a career though? Like if I have a degree, maybe I could do this as a career. So kind of backtracked and kind of reevaluated things. Like I was already planning on going to Ohio State anyway after Columbus State. But now that I knew what I wanted to do, it made me more excited. So I eventually enrolled and went into the program, did that for a semester, met some people, and then eventually I decided it wasn't for me because I wasn't getting out what I thought I was from it. And I had outside sources basically telling me that it wasn't what I wanted. When in reality, if I would have stuck with it, who knows what would have happened. But I mean, I am where I am now because I ended up dropping out from that program. So I guess I can't complain too much. I'm on the Merit Makers podcast, for God's sake. So
there you go. I appreciate it.
So yeah, long story short, Ohio State just wasn't for me in that aspect. I was still doing the band during that time. I got accepted into the National Band Service Fraternity Kappa Kappa Psi, and I got like 2 months after being initiated into that fraternity, I was elected as the historian for the organization. So that entailed, keeping the books, like documenting fun stuff that we were doing, service projects that we were doing for the band and the community, and like high school bands and stuff around the area. And I ran on the platform of that I would do videos for the fraternity and like kind of boost up our social media and stuff. So I ended up fulfilling that and got a few good videos under my belt from that experience, and that kind of opened some extra doors for me and had like just put more editing and filming experience under my belt. And from there, I felt confident in my abilities at the time. At least I upgraded cameras to a Canon 80D, and then from there, I ended up going back to Columbus State for a video production certificate that I had heard about. So I enrolled back in Columbus State. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go and get this certificate because at least I'll have something to show for my time in college. Because at that point, I had nothing besides like 40 credit hours, which is a lot of work still. But so I went back, and funny enough, during this video production certificate experience, that's where I met Philip May, and he was across the room from me, and he would like talk about all the stuff he's done. I was like, man, if I could get in with that guy, that would be awesome. Like I can imagine like being friends with this guy. Like he clearly has his life together and stuff. And eventually, like out of pure like fate, I guess, we got matched up in a group to do a video project together. Out of 3 people in this class of like 20-ish people, we just so happened to get put together, and we made like a pretty decent video. I mean, it was just a school assignment. We didn't really have a camera besides his GH5 at the time and stuff, and that's not a bad camera, but I'd never used it before. So I opted to try to do the camera work for it at the time, and it was fine. I just didn't know the camera very well at the time. I was used to Canons.
Yeah, don't beat yourself up, man.
So
it's all good.
It was just a school project anyway. But the guy liked it so much, and he liked how well we worked as a team, the instructor anyway, that he we were supposed to switch up the groups every project. He just kept us together for every project. And nice. I was like, okay, this is cool. So clearly he thinks we worked well together. And, months later, we before COVID, we would hang out. We would do weddings together for film. He got me my first few gigs for film ever. Like I was a PA on a project for a festival called 3 Weeks of Terror in Columbus. And that was awesome. That like opened my eyes to like what filmmaking, like indie filmmaking could be. And like I loved the teamwork on set and how everyone was like so friendly to each other and collaborative. And we were doing such cool things. Like it's everything I wanted. And then I got to he got me a gig doing boom operation on another horror film for 3 Weeks of Terror, actually. So I did 2 things for that.
Oh boy.
So that was cool. I wasn't doing what I wanted. I wanted to be behind the camera, but I definitely at that point did not have the experience needed to be able to do that. So lo and behold, Winter Film comes around, based in Cincy, and he's like, I want to enter this, and I want you to be my cinematographer for it. We're gonna have another guy that's gonna also be credited as cinematographer, or as DP technically, and you'll be credited as cinematographer, but like we'll make it work. So I went out. I was like, I'm gonna take this seriously. So I went out and bought my Blackmagic, and I was like, I have no idea what I'm gonna do with this thing, but we need it for this film. I was like, I want it to be the best it can possibly be. So I bought my Blackmagic. He rented the Rokinon lenses that he would eventually go and buy himself, and we made a film called Sins for Hire, which I don't know if it still is, but it was for the longest time on Amazon Prime. We eventually had some legs, and we made it go on Amazon Prime for a little bit. It might still be up there. For a while, it was free with Prime, so you could watch it on there. And now you might have to pay now, but I'm not sure. So that was my first ever gig. And from then on out, if I don't know what I would have done if I wouldn't have met Phil. Like I don't know where I'd be right now. So I owe a lot of my, I guess, career, quote unquote, so far to him. And funny enough, I actually met our good friend Nick in class too. And I saw Nick, like at that point, I thought I was so cool. I thought I was like so ahead of everybody. And like, even though I had like less than 6 or 7 months of like experience at all. And I thought I was like just the best at that point. And I don't even think at that point I had done a film. And here's Nick over here talking it up in the corner. Nick knows everything. And I was just like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
And then I was like, who does he think he is? Just because he was in a film club in high school? I was like, you kidding me?
For context, this is Nick Mamoni.
Nick Mamoni.
He's been on an episode before this, so people will know who he is if they're listening.
I was just like, this guy is just talking the teacher up. I was like, he thinks he's so cool. And I was like, I'm the real deal. He's not. And then
oh no,
I had like a rude awakening, like just like going on film sets later and like humbling myself of like, I'm actually not that good. I'm still learning constantly. And even to this day, I know I feel that way. Like every day is a learning experience on set. And, you know, sometimes you need that for sure. But, and then eventually I met Nick. I couldn't even tell you how we met. I think it was through you or somebody that was like, this person needs a DP, or I know we knew each other from that. Maybe he even reached out to me. I'd have to go back and look at our messages.
I'm not sure if it was through me or not, but my main understanding of your first project that you did with him was The Cyclist,
Yeah.
which was Nick's take on the My Road Reel competition.
Yep.
And I don't know if I recommended you to him, or if you guys just met randomly, or if Nick saw that I was following you, and then he does.
We had no interaction before that. Like, we were in class together. I didn't even know he knew who I was.
I had a similar experience with him, where he and I were at the Natus Awards, and this will be a throwback to our episode that we did previously where we talked about this a little bit. But he and I were in the same room, walked up on the same stage, and accepted awards, and we never knew. I had no idea who he was. He was just another random face. We never even spoke that day.
Yeah.
But we were in the same room, in the same crowd. This is pre-COVID.
Yeah.
At the same awards ceremony, and then. Fast forward, I think 2 or 3 months later, if not maybe a year later. I'm fuzzy on what year that awards ceremony was in, but regardless, the October before COVID, he and I meet up again at CIF, and that's where we essentially like got to know each other and became friends, and have since worked on multiple projects together.
Yeah. Nick just kind of appears in your life. You don't expect it.
He just
shows up and he's there, and then you don't know how to get rid of him. But
right.
No, he's awesome.
He's got a way with words as well.
Yeah.
When you start talking up the teacher, like, it's so Nick. I see that.
It's so funny because like I thought he was just being like trying to like assert dominance, but in reality, that's just how he is. That's how he is. And he just talks like that, and it's so like. I don't know. It's charming when you know him, but for some reason, like when I didn't know him, and I thought he was competition. I was like, this guy, he's just like telling everybody what he knows, and he's trying to help.
It can be off-putting from someone who has previous pride issues and still has struggles with pride stuff and competition. I am extremely competitive, hence my love for first-person shooters.
Right.
My first interaction with Nick actually was quite positive, because he was coming into a realm where I had only been there for 2 weeks. And so I was new myself, and we kind of teamed up. So thankfully I didn't have the experience that you had, where it's like, who is this man?
I thought everyone,
I was under the
impression the entire time I was in school for film that it was like, if you don't like destroy somebody else, then you're not going to get ahead. And I'm glad I shook that, because now I understand
that's not how it is at all.
That's not the case. And the fact is that I've only gotten opportunities because I've befriended people. And like, you know, just don't take yourself too seriously, and like do what you can do and have faith in yourself. But like, you don't have to drag somebody else down to like put yourself on a pedestal, I guess, at the end of the day.
Not at all. You want friends in this industry, because there will be times where you need work and they'll call you up out of the blue and hand you your next paycheck.
Yeah.
Or you will have so much on your plate that you can't handle it. Someone will give you an opportunity, and you know someone who can do the job, so you pass it off. There's enough work to go around for everyone. And even I saying that feels slightly hypocritical, because I feel like, well, if I'm not doing anything, I am a failure, or I am never going to succeed in this field, or I'm going to fall short in some way or die because I can't feed myself and or future family if I have one. Point being, I have those thoughts. It's real. It's authentic. It's not, I'm not saying that for the camera or anything. I legit think about that every day.
Yeah.
Point being is, you need friends in this field. You want friends, and it's good to not burn bridges most of the time.
Absolutely. Like, unless you're getting hurt, I guess, by that person, and they're actually legitimately dragging you down, and you think about it.
Unless they're genuinely a bad person.
Yeah.
No.
But
sorry to take you off your story.
No, it's good. That's kind of it. Like, I mean, you know, from then on out, like, from that point, it kind of leads to today. Like, I started meeting people. Like, I think Phil was the bridge to my career so far.
He was there at Gear Show.
Yeah, he's brought me. He told me about it. I didn't know about it. Like, he opened my eyes to everything. I didn't know Columbus had a good film had like a film program at all, like that it was big. I had no clue about anything. I was just like taking the limb. I was like, I could have been up in like some small town going to school. Like I don't know, BG. I was gonna say BG, but BG has a good film program too. So it's like, who knows where I could have been? Like, but I just had no idea where I was, and the fact that I was in Columbus, and just so happens to have a good film program here. Like, it's pretty big. Like compared to other states, like we have a pretty good film thing going. Like at least a lot of passionate filmmakers here. So I don't know.
Whether you look in Columbus, Cincy, Cleveland, all throughout. I mean, the market compared to other places, like it's not the largest.
No.
We don't really have a lot of narrative here in Columbus. There's narrative in Cincy. There's narrative in Cleveland. Columbus, not so much. But
I feel like there's a hunger for it, though.
Yes, it'll get there eventually. I think, especially if people like us decide to stick around. If people, and this is going to turn into a plug for the show, but like for the people that come on this show or that want to get their foot in the door or just let other people know they exist, like that's part of the whole reason why I made this in the first place, is to help cultivate and grow that culture of, hey, we've got plenty of people in the area that want to do the narrative work. There are multiple problems and roadblocks in the way, one of which is, we don't have the funding or investment for it yet, but we have the talent, we have the opportunity. It's just a matter of attracting the money because the people are here that want to make it. The landscape, we've got a fairly diverse, I probably shouldn't use that word. We have a large amount of different scapes, I suppose. We've got the cityscape, we've got the countryside, we've got forests, we've got lakes, we've got snow, we've got seasonal weather, water.
Sometimes it can be against you when it changes suddenly. But,
yes. I mean, Ohio, it's like it can be 30 degrees in the morning and 70 degrees in midday. And
it was kind of this morning.
Yeah, it's crazy. But point being is, I think if we can get the right tax incentives in town and attract the right people and the money to make the narrative projects come to life, it can happen. We have almost all the ingredients ready. So in regards to your story, just to connect a few dots that we've already previously mentioned, after you met Nick at, it was C-State, correct?
Yep.
Or was that Ohio?
It was C-State.
Okay. So after that, you started working with Fillmore, getting on set and doing stuff. That's when you and I met. At this point in your timeline was with Phil at Gear Show. And then after Gear Show, you and I stayed in touch, and we ran into each other on Instant Coffee with Strangers because Phil was producing that. And since then, you and I have now
I think I told him about you. I was like, get Chris. And he's like, all right.
Huh? Okay.
I was like, he does it all. Get Chris. And he was like, yeah. He's like, I guess he does. And so he's like, I'll bring him on.
Well, I appreciate that. And you see that demonstrates
secretly behind the scenes, I believe I was the person that said, like, let's get Chris involved. So.
Well, if you hadn't, we might not be sitting here right now. So that just goes to show you how the whole friends and networking thing comes into play. So with that being said, since we've covered your story now, is there anything in particular you wanted to go over or talk about that we haven't mentioned yet? Because I think, honestly, like we've had a really good conversation about everything so far.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty comfortable wrapping it up here if you don't got anything else.
It's just, I don't know. I mean, I guess the topic that I like is that going into kind of like making it work where you live sort of thing. Big inspiration for that is Peter Jackson from Lord of the Rings. Did Lord of the Rings and stuff. Like, nobody thought that he should do it in New Zealand, of all places. Like, there was a hunger for film program there as well. Like, the community really loved it. And it kind of gives me inspiration for Ohio, because like as much as I do feel pulled to like go out to LA and stuff, or down to Texas or to Georgia or somewhere, it would be just the most amazing thing to have something here that's sustainable, like get Netflix to build like a huge like
production space.
Here for us, and like hire us to do stuff. And I just think it's important to like, hopefully one day if I ever make it, quote unquote, I would love to like actually come back and, primarily source my talent and crew from Ohio. So hold me to it if it ever happens. But.
Will do, man. I've got projects on my plate right now that I'm on the like producing side of things and also crew, but there are projects that are aimed at doing exactly that. And so you're not alone there. I don't mean to say, hey, it's competition, you better beat them to it. That's not what I'm saying. I'm more saying
whoever does it first.
Whoever does it first, the intent is the same regardless. Ohio people want to make more opportunities available for Ohio.
We have a lot of people that come here from LA to do film stuff. So it's like, why don't, I know this is like the age-old thing. Like people talk about it on like the Mid Ohio Filmmakers Association page all the time about like, why aren't they using local crew? It's they probably just don't know, and they probably like think it's easier just to. For some reason, I think it's easier to fly in people from LA. So,
well, the other thing too is that there's a trust factor, and there's friends involved. So people only want to work with people they know and trust and are friends with. And so people from LA only know people from LA.
It's true.
And so they bring the people from LA out. The same, I unfortunately agree with at the moment, is the same for Ohio. If I get a gig out in LA, I want to bring Ohio crew out to LA.
It's like loyalty.
Exactly. And so I'm still working through a way to get past that. I don't, honestly, at this point in time, to be very honest, I don't know if I want to change that mindset, but it's a mindset that I recognize exists and that I also partake in, because I want to be able to pay the Cameron Hansons of the world, the Gibson Davises, the Nick Mamonis, because no one else from LA is going to do it at the moment. Not saying that none of you guys will ever get work again. Right. I do not see myself, as the savior of our careers. That's not it at all. But it's more like, it's a real thing that people from LA bring in crew from LA because that's all they know. Same with Ohio. So I keep saying Ohio. I should say the Midwest, because there's a lot of talent down in Kentucky, over in Pennsylvania. We got people in Michigan and Indiana who do this all the time as well. It's just not as connected because LA is so central. You got millions of people in one town, whereas you have millions of people out here just with a little bit extra distance.
Right.
With that being said, on the Lord of the Rings stuff, do you have any projects or anything like that you're trying to pursue that's in that vein?
Yeah, I actually have 2 projects coming up. One of them, going down the Lord of the Rings route, is I approached a podcast called The Unexpected Podcast, Talking Tolkien. It's a great podcast where 2 guys from Ohio, they're from, one of them is from a little town called Amanda, Ohio. It's actually, I think it's technically a village. It's very small. In Lancaster. It's like right next to where Nick lives, basically. So the other one is currently like, where is he from? Like Mount Vernon area, I think. So anyway, so they have a podcast and they're based in Ohio. And they basically do like a reread of The Lord of the Rings, and currently they are in The Hobbit. So I've been following along with that, and I've been listening to them since like June or July. And they're just like 2 really cool down-to-earth guys. I think they're both teachers. So, I don't know. They're just really cool. So I got in contact with them, and a partner that they have right now, which is a candle company. It's like a one-person like operation candle company. Her name's Casey. She does Firelight. Her brand name is Firelight Fable. So basically, she makes like, I think they're soy candles for fantasy. So one of the inspirations is you light them during like a D&D session, and it's supposed to like, each one has a different scent to remind you of like a different thing. Like she has a Harry Potter line, Lord of the Rings line. I think I've heard something about like a pirate themed line as well. I think one of the Lord of the Rings scents is like halflings and pipeweed or something, and it has like a earthy and like smoky smell to it, and even the candle itself has like a wooden wick, so it crackles and stuff. So
that's sweet.
It's super nice, and haven't had one in my hand yet, but one of the stipulations for working with her was that I wanted some candles in return. So I got in contact with both of them, and started talking to them about the possibility. I wanted to make sure when I went to them I was ready, so I went to them with a pitch of like a possible commercial we could do, like a 30-second thing just for their personal YouTube or to post on social media, involving the two fellows from the podcast acting in it, and then stumbling upon some nice treasure, which would be the candles. And so we're working on that right now. We're in pre-production mode, finishing up the script, like making sure it makes sense, like getting locations done. I've done some previs with Cinetracer for it so far, and I think it's gonna be really fun. They've never done anything like it before. I think there's a lot of potential. I think we're gonna film it down in Clear Creek Metro Park down there, and I think it'll be really cool. So I'm looking forward to that. I also got in contact with doing recently another commercial for a local, like I think it's based in Cincinnati, but they're doing like another operations like grand opening of a space up here, like in Hilliard area.
Nice.
So I got in contact with somebody that I met actually through my motorcycle video, that he liked my motorcycle video. So he's in contact with me right now about planning this, like another commercial. So
Regardless,
pretty
man,
cool.
I'm glad you're getting work, so there's a lot to touch on for me, at least, with the Candles project.
Yeah.
I think it's really sweet that she's focusing on creating like authentic smells for the I never thought I'd talk about candles on the show, but
Candles are great. I love candles.
I do as well. My mom especially is big on candles. Having the opportunity to work in that sort of vein of content in terms of fantasy, I got to admit I'm a little jealous of, because what I personally want to do moving forward, aside from like when it comes to narrative, I want to do corporate commercial stuff. Yes, talking heads is fine and great. But when it comes to narrative, my focus right now at this point in time, what I'm very interested in is action and combat, like military style stories, and also fantasy, action, adventure, stuff like the Pirates of the Caribbean, Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, stuff with swords, combat, action, adventure, mystery, fantasy. I don't know if you read a lot as a kid, but for me, I was a huge nerd growing up, still am. I loved watching a lot of Star Wars as well. So like sci-fi, action on top of that for the genres of film and narrative that I want to do.
Yeah.
In regards to my reading, though, I was a huge fan of Brandon Mull. I don't know if you or anyone else out there
Not
listening
100%
will know
familiar myself.
who that author is, but he authored The Beyonders, is a 3-book series that he put together.
I feel like I've heard of that though.
As well as Fablehaven.
Okay.
And I think he's come out with some other stuff as well recently after those 2 series. But I loved reading both of those. What I would love to be able to do is take The Beyonders and put it into like either a Netflix series style show, or
live
even
action.
a live action, or either maybe a Lord of the Rings type deal where it's 3 movies, hours long, because it's a book. And I really want to stay true to the book. I'm not really interested as a director adding my own characters and spin to it, because I just genuinely loved the book. And I think that's where a lot of people mess up the story with creating books into movies, and this could be a whole nother tailspin, which I don't know if we have time for honestly right now. But you see people take stories from books and completely ruin them. If you've read them before and you watch it on screen, just ruins the whole thing for you. I would love to be able to just work with Brandon's vision and take that story from The Beyonders and put it on screen. Yes, we'll have to mitigate some stuff, because like you can't on screen know what a person is thinking, so you have to figure out how to communicate that visually. There's stuff like that you can't get around, but overall I just loved those books, and I've read them through so many times, and being able to take that story and that genre and put it onto screen is one of my bigger goals that I have in terms of action, fantasy, adventure stuff.
To that point of adapting things, I think the future, honestly, for things like that is episodic. So basically, a dream of mine, and also the biggest terror of my life, would probably be one day potentially being either a showrunner, director, or cinematographer on a Lord of the Rings reboot. And I think I'm speaking into existence. So
Same here.
Hopefully it'll happen. So, I mean, that would be the biggest undertaking of my entire life. And I know, like, going back to Peter Jackson, I'm sure, like, people love his stuff, and I love his stuff too. And I think he hit the nail on the head. But there's lots of stuff that isn't true to the books in there.
Absolutely.
Because it couldn't be. Sometimes it couldn't be. And sometimes for story, like, they had to take it out. But I think if it were to be redone eventually, and hopefully by the time I'm hitting my stride eventually in the future, it'll be far enough away that people will hunger for some sort of reboot again or something. But I think even if it's not me, I hope one day there's a episodic Lord of the Rings that it'll be hard to watch, because it'll, like, you know, I'm in love. Like, I've been watching the original, like, I guess not the original. I've been watching the trilogy of Lord of the Rings since I was like 4, like probably too young to be watching it. And you know, I just loved it. So it would be hard to even like accept that, but maybe one day there will be hunger for a new Lord of the Rings and a new cast, and maybe potentially a more accurate story to the books. because there's lots of stuff in there. Like each chapter could be one episode, and there's lots of stuff that you have to skip over for a movie because it's just not important. Like,
Yes.
for example, I don't know if you're familiar, but like the not to get turning this into a Lord of the Rings podcast, I guess, but like the Tom Bombadil section of like has nothing to do with the story. Like you could like Peter Jackson took it out. Didn't do anything to the film.
For The Hobbit, Azog was not a thing.
Yeah. So, well, that's a different conversation. Like maybe that shouldn't have stayed a thing, but so there's stuff in there that you could include, such as like extra background information that you can't include in a film, but you could include in a TV show because it would be a fun episode.
Right.
Even if it's like totally like different from the rest of the show, like people would enjoy that, I think, getting to see that in live action. So maybe one day, but
I may be mistaken, actually. It's been a while since I've read The Hobbit, but the fun thing is I've watched the Lord of the Rings trilogy, like Peter Jackson so much. I am myself a huge Peter Jackson fan. I've seen the Lord of the Rings trilogy at least 6, 7, 8 times all the way through each movie. With The Hobbit, I've read the book 2 or 3 times all the way through,
Right.
and then saw the Hobbit movies. I love the movies just as much as the book, which is an opinion that is not widely shared. However, I don't remember Azog the White, the Defiler, being in the book.
I don't think he's there at all.
I don't think so. I think my brain might be tricking me, saying no, he's in the book.
I don't
think so.
I'm on like chapter 7 right now, and I don't think there's even a mention. But
Right.
I mean, I'm like 3/4 of the way through the book, and we're still on like beginning of the second movie. So it's like clearly they took some liberties with that, but yeah, I don't know. I don't even think Radagast is in the book that much. He's like a mention. He's there for like 2 seconds and then he leaves. But he's definitely a bigger player in like the first 2 movies of the trilogy anyway. But
yeah, there's some fan service in there for sure.
I still think it's fun, and I still think it's a good movie, but you can tell that it was a studio movie more than like a passion project, as Lord of the Rings originally was. You can definitely tell that like Peter Jackson did not want to do it, but he felt obligated to do it. And I know we're running short on time probably, so I don't want to get too much more into that, but that's a project I'm working on. We can have me back sometime and we can talk more Lord of the Rings with somebody.
I would love to. So if you get through this project, what I'd love to do as well is bring you back, because we never touched on Cinetracer.
Yeah.
I want to get your thoughts and experience using Cinetracer
Yeah,
as
give me
a
a
future
few
episode at some point.
Give me a little bit, and so I'll get more used to it, and
stack
then
up some projects with that previs, and we'll be good to go. I had another thought on the Lord of the Rings, but I guess I'll save that for another time, because
we'll get me going again.
Touch more on that later. But yeah, so I think overall this has been a fantastic episode. I really appreciate you taking the time, and I know I say that.
I'm trying to claim the crown of the longest episode. Yeah, so let's see if I did it. We'll see at the end when it's all cut together.
We'll see. With that being said, as well, I'd love to get your socials out there one more time. Feel free to plug your website, Instagram, Facebook, wherever, and then that'll be it pretty much. So where can people find you?
Yeah, so I mean, Facebook, just Cameron Hanson. I'm friends with Chris and stuff. So if you need to get a hold of me that way, that's one way. As far as Instagram goes, Cameron.in.Hanson. That's Hanson. Some people get confused with the SEN or HENSON. It's HANSON. And then website is the same with no dots. So like Cameron N Hanson. The extra N is important.
The Cameron.NN is in Nancy?
As in Nicholas. That's my middle name.
Okay, cool. Not saying that was your middle name, but just the usual term for N that I hear all the time when explaining it is Nancy.
Trying to enunciate the
exactly.
N.
Yeah, people get
confused. I think that's one of my biggest branding issues I'm going to need to overcome is
You'd be
the fact that the last letter of my first name is the first letter of my middle name. So
oh dear. Okay.
That's where it can get kind of confusing, but there you go.
Okay.
Maybe it'll be like a lower third or something.
Yeah, we'll have it on the screen. Don't worry. So for those of you who did have trouble spelling that are listening on audio, feel free to check out the video on YouTube at the Merit Makers Podcast.
Maybe drop a like or something.
Maybe just give us a little bit of love, please. No, I'm not begging. I appreciate.
I am. Please do it.
Okay. Well, in that case, with that being said, thank you again for coming on. I appreciate it. For those of you who are tuning in over video as well, if you're wondering about the space that we're in right now, I always try to plug the studio we're associated with. if you're in the Columbus, Ohio area, there's a new studio in town called the Sycamore Studio. Feel free to check them out. There'll be a link in the description. We are currently in their podcasting space. There is sort of a 3-room setup that they have at their current location at this point in time, with a podcast studio, as well as a editing suite and a 3,000-foot psych space. For those of you who may not be familiar with the psych space, think of it like an infinity wall. It's a very large production area where people are going to be able to come in like yourself. DPs, directors, producers come in with their projects, doing photo shoots, maybe even a little bit of car work as well. It's just big enough, I think, to do that kind of stuff, and it's really cool. So for those of you who are interested in checking that out, links will be in the description. Also, feel free to check them out on social media in addition to the Merit Makers podcast. We do have an Instagram page. Please follow us there for more updates. And with that being said, if anyone wants to come on as a future guest, again, find that link in the YouTube video description. That's the only place you can find it. Send us your info, and I'll be more than happy to get in touch. So, third and final time, Cameron, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. And for everyone else, hope you all have a good rest of your day.
It was a pleasure, brother.